Fishing break. When it comes to fishing in video games, there are often two different ways it can be done. Sometimes it's a serious simulation game where you have to find the right bait and the patience to catch the fish. Or there's games like Animal Crossing where you just wait for a tug and you hold down a button. That's pretty simple. Then there's the middle ground like Stardew Valley, which makes it much more difficult by making you keep the fish inside of a bar on the screen. Now this game tries to find a happy medium by having simple controls but slightly strategic gameplay. But it might be too repetitive to be enjoyable. Now this game was sent to me by the publisher, so thanks for that. But I do have to wonder, why? This is not a good port of a mobile game of the same name. I actually think the mobile version of this is a much better version of this game. Even if it wants you to use real money to speed up some of the gameplay, the layout and overall presentation was much better. In fact, I think this is actually a very lazy port, as it makes you use a mouse pointer on the screen to click on things. There's no reason this couldn't be attached to buttons. You shouldn't have to swipe with the on-screen cursor to throw out your line. It should just be a press or a hold of a button. You can use the button to reel in your line, so why can't I use the same thing to send it out? There are a couple menus that are attached to the D-pad for quick access. However, you still have to drag your mouse around to click on things. This game is very simple and it gives you missions to do, like finding an X number of fish, and once you do all the regular missions, you get a star. There are also special missions which have you look for rare fish, which only come out at certain times or when certain conditions happen. As you're doing this, you will unlock one of the many islands. However, the lakes are basically the same thing with just different colored water. I guess this lake is a lot more polluted than the other ones. The fish will change, but the basic gameplay stays the same way. Each kind of fish has a different defense point. If you have a higher attack point, you're going to be able to catch them. At least that's the way it should be. I was having issues catching fish who were 20 levels lower than me. I found the easiest way to catch fish was to lure them in and then move my lure right next to my boat and then quickly get them when they're barely on the hook so they couldn't break away. But I shouldn't have to do it that way. But it was the easiest and most consistent way to catch them. Another annoying thing is that every time you throw out your line, it would use up one bait. You can't reuse the bait even if the fish are not biting. It wasn't a huge deal in the beginning levels, but the bait becomes much more expensive as you unlock the islands. So that makes upgrading your gear much more difficult because you're constantly buying bait, which I'm sure is the point of the mobile version because they're encouraging you to spend real cash. But when they're releasing it on the Switch as a normal fishing game, it's a bit frustrating. There are two kinds of currency in the game. Cash and in-game cash. In-game cash you can earn when you sell your fish. The other kind of cash is the one you get when you fill up your museums or get achievements. You can use it to bypass the in-game cash to speed up your upgrades on your fishing pole. They did take out the pay function in the game, so really it's just there to remind you it was a mobile game at one point. They should have just adjusted the money that you need for upgrades. They do give you their special cash money each time that you catch a fish, but it was still unnecessary for a game that costs almost $8. The fish were colorful and I liked the cartoonish look to them. While it was repetitive to catch them, I liked it when ridiculous sea life would show up. Like when sharks would come in and start eating them. At least I think they were. I heard chomping sounds, and I assumed it was just a shark having a snack of them. Also, quite often the fish would just die and just float around on the surface of the water. I have no idea what the reason or necessity of this was. Did we really have to have dead fish littering the water in this cute fishing game? More than once, dead fish would get under my boat, and it would glitch out and wouldn't let me throw out a line. It was easy to fix. I would just need to leave the area and go back, but it was just strange. There were some odd things that would happen, like trying to catch a fish and they would break a line and you would see the hook and the bait just hanging out of them. Sometimes they would just have multiple hooks in them for all the times I tried to catch them. From what I noticed, it didn't seem to give any difference to their defense. Fishing Break was a very basic fishing game. It has you unlocking islands which have new fish, but it's the same world, only just more polluted water. This was badly optimized for the Switch, as there was no reason to use a mouse cursor to do anything, as they should have made every control accessible through the buttons. Now this is normally $7.99, and I would just skip it. It was very repetitive. It wanted to be a simplistic fishing game, and it is that, but it just isn't a very enjoyable one. So I would just skip it.